Good afternoon. Today is March 5th, 2018. You are part of the Rowan County Commission meeting this afternoon. We are honored that you've taken your time to spend with us this afternoon, and we hope that you find your time with us very profitable. It is the tradition of this board and thousands of boards across the country that we start with a couple of things. We start with a prayer that's called a solemnizing prayer. And that prayer is for the commissioners as we seek wisdom to do the things that are right for all the citizens of our community. And that'll be led by Chaplain Taylor, and then we'll also have a pledge. So commissioners, if you'll join me, we'll get started.
Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day you provided for us. Thank you for an opportunity as we come today to have the business conducted today by the Rowan County Commissioners and those within the audience today. We thank you for them coming today, Lord, and we pray, Lord, that you give them the wisdom they need today, each one of us today, to make the right decision, do the right things, Lord. We thank you for Rowan County, Lord, and we thank you for the privilege to be able to be here. Pray you bless us today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chaplain Taylor, for being with us today, as always. All right, Commissioners, the agenda has been provided. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Any changes? Or if not, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as provided?
So move.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes were provided to us from our last meeting on February 19th. We have a motion to approve the minutes as provided.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we have a consent agenda, items A through I. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we have public comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
real fast, the closed session only includes the presentations. We need to add the discussion with regard to water line easements to that. So if we could amend
Very
the
good.
agenda to include that, please.
Yes, if we could amend, if you'll allow, we'll amend the closed session. When we put the agenda out, we'd had one item on there regarding legal counsel, regarding the opioid litigation. And we will be adding for acquisition of easements for the waterline project. I make that in the form of a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Council.
Will that one come first or second?
That'll be second. It'll be number 2. All right, we have public comment period. First, we have Ms. Darcy Ward. Is Darcy here? All right. Welcome, Ms. Ward.
Thank you. I didn't come prepared to speak today, but someone asked me to speak up on behalf of the West Rowan, proposed West Branch of the Rowan Public Library. Darcy Ward. My children have grown up at the library, and the other day Braden was there with me, and I was like, little dude, I used to bring you here when you couldn't even sit up. You know, so they've been a part of Ms. Pam's program, and Ms. Pat's program, and Mr. Roberts' program. And they consider them family. You know, we go in there, they get hugs, they get the attention, they get to play with other kids. And it's not that we won't continue to come to Salisbury if we don't receive a branch in Western Rowan County, but we don't like being treated like the redheaded stepchild of the county either. It's fair that we, you know, get some of the funds and allotment and attention as well. But we have a huge homeschooling, group in our area of the county, and they're on their way here. Some of them are, but I just know that they as well would put the library to very good use. And in this day and age, when so many of the schools are going to iPad and technology, there's still nothing like turning a page in a book. You know, I don't curl up on the couch at night with my kids with an iPad to read them a bedtime story. We go get a book off the bookshelf, and we read our books. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Philip Barton. Mr. Barton, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I count among the greatest blessings in my life the opportunity I had to serve Rowan County citizens as library director for 30 years. During that time, a truly remarkable team of employees dedicated themselves to providing excellent library services throughout Rowan County. One of the library's earliest long-range goals was to expand the library services throughout Rowan County by establishing full-service branch libraries. The first full-service branch library was opened in the early 80s in Landis to serve the southern area of Rowan County. This was followed in the mid-80s with the second full-service branch, the East Branch Library in Rockville. Today, we are here to ask your support of this goal with the establishment of a new branch library to serve western Rowan County, thereby placing a full-service library in relatively close proximity to all Rowan County citizens. What we have witnessed over the years is that a public library is so much more than a building full of books, though that is certainly an important aspect of it. Today, our public libraries serve as community centers in the truest sense of the word. They are available to all citizens of all ages, economic status, and education. As a library building consultant who has had the opportunity to work on library projects throughout the state of North Carolina, I always return home to Rowan County knowing that this county is blessed with great library facilities and services, thanks to the excellent support of our county government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Next, we have Ms. Nancy Brown. Ms. Brown, welcome.
Thank you. I'm like Darcy. I had no idea I was going to come in here and try and speak, but here goes. My husband was raised in Cleveland. He was a graduate of Cleveland High School. My 2 children went to the Cleveland Elementary School. My 3 grandchildren have gone to the elementary school. I have lived there for 48 years. It's a wonderful community. Second to none. It really is. It's a beautiful, beautiful community. We are a reading community. We are. Our citizens are spread out. We're rural. We realize that. But I cannot think of one good reason why this board would not utilize part of the building that's setting up there now that's going to be empty to furnish us with a library. Not one. If you come up with one, share it with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Ms. Osborne. Ms. Osborne, welcome. Good to see you.
My name is Dorcas Osborne. I have 4 children, and we've lived here 43 years in the West Rowan area. And Jane was a head majorette, Judy was a flag girl, and Jerry was a cheerleader, and John was the most valuable defensive linebacker on the football team. And my husband, Gerald, is on the town board, and so he's a graduate of Clemson. And he's out golfing, but if he'd been home, he'd been here talking to us today. And so we have a beautiful facility, and it would make a nice public library. So I hope you all will consider really voting to. And I have worked with the Laubach Reading Program and with the public library here in teaching reading. I love to teach phonics to children. And And when we lived in Georgia for 10 years, we were away 10 years, we didn't sell our house. They said, Mom, we don't want to move from the home place. So I could just go into all kind of little things and tell you all. That would be interesting to you and you'd enjoy it, but I'm not going to take it all, everybody's time. But I do hope y'all will consider having, but we do have a lovely facility just waiting to be utilized. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. Dr. Gary Freeze.
I am in my second round of chairing the library board. I want the Board of Commissioners to know just how excited, how enthusiastic, and how unanimous the board is in support of this proposal. We have talked about it for years. We have had meetings for years. We have ridden around in Cleveland for years. I even got lost once, which I didn't think was possible in Cleveland, looking for possible ideas about the library. So I want to let you know just how much there is support throughout the area and throughout your boards for this idea. I would add one coda. I've been looking at it lately, and I'm really thinking about the fact that the way in which the new school is being located and the possible reuse of the building there is actually going to be one of the gateways to the county. If you think about it, think of how Cleveland has changed over the last 20 years, and as we continue to add both cultural and commercial facilities, it's going to be one of the more remarkable landscapes in the county. So we get 2 for 1 in this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Freeze. Michael Julian. Welcome, Michael.
Well, it seems to be a recurring theme here this afternoon. As a young child who spent summers in the library reading and working with, as an adult, then working with elementary school students, helping them to learn to read, and those students that did not get enough reading time at home, working with them, I would like to encourage the Board of Commissioners to fully fund the West Rowan Library. It will be a great asset to the western side of the county. Everyone else in the county, East Rowan, Salisbury, North Rowan, all has public libraries, so it would be a great asset to the western side of the county. And so I encourage the commissioners to fully fund the West Rowan Public Library.
Thank you, Mr. Julian.
Since we have Mrs. Brown here, and her husband was mayor for 150 years, I think, and Mrs. Osborne, who's here, and her husband is on the city council there, tell them we're going to match every dollar that Cleveland donates to this project.
Got a challenge out there. All right, good.
I'm just kidding. We're happy to have y'all here today. And I did want to let y'all know that Ms. Brown and Ms. Osborne are here. They're better servants than their husbands who served the city for a long time because they are here today. Yeah, I understand their priorities.
All right. Thank all of you who were able to speak today. All right, item number 3. We have a public hearing to consider an amendment to the Daimler agreement. Scott?
This is a Cleveland day, isn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners, for hearing this request today. We've got a representative of Daimler here in the audience. We're prepared to speak in a few minutes, but wanted to request that the Commissioners consider approving an amendment to the Daimler incentive agreement. And let me just take a few minutes to talk about how we got here. Again, this is a request for an amendment. It's a second amendment to the original agreement, and it's in relation to the project we've discussed over the last couple of years and that's underway right now, the new logistics center out there at the Cleveland facility. We're looking at a $26 million investment in Rowan County, and of course our opportunity to support one of our valuable existing employers. As I mentioned earlier, we have company reps here. We have Mr. Henning Bruns, the head of operations for the Daimler plant in Cleveland, and also Mr. David Trepping, who's the government affairs, or sorry, state and local relations director for Daimler, and he's headquartered out of Washington, D.C., and he came down for this meeting. As I mentioned earlier, this would be an amendment to an existing agreement with the county. This goes back to 2009. Back then, the county entered into an agreement with Daimler, excuse me, for Project FMT. At the time, they were talking about investing close to $16 million in their facility to accommodate production of their new military truck line. At the time, they also agreed to maintain 695 jobs at the facility. That was the current employment level at the time, and of course, we were in the middle of the recession when that was going on. Under the terms of the agreement, they would get a 75% tax incentive grant for 5 years. But of course, there was a reevaluation around that time, and the new value was lower than the original, so there was no growth in the tax base or the tax contribution, so no incentive was ever paid for that project. And as you may recall, in November of 2015, you approved the First Amendment to the agreement for their project called D2. This project back then was, it was proposed at the time, a $38 million improvement to the facility for a new logistics center. And I think when the agreement was finally signed, it went to $35 million, but 38 was the number we had at the time for the public hearing. There was no increase predicted in employment at the facility, but at that time, Daimler agreed to bump up their minimum job number to 1,500. And like the original agreement, Daimler would receive a 75% tax grant for 5 years. At the time, the project was scheduled to be done by December 31st of 2016, and the grant would begin with the property assessed January of the following year. The project was delayed due to a variety of circumstances that they can touch on here in a moment. But where we are right now is construction began on the center late last year, and the investment number is now $26 million. Also, 50 employees were also called back around that time. But Daimler expects to have all this done December 31st of this year, probably before that. Now, due to the delay in starting the project, Daimler's requested the Second Amendment. And the main change to the agreement, what the amendment is really about, is pushing the start date back of the grant from January 2017 to January of this year. This would allow the company to capture more of their investment in the grant calculations. If the agreement is approved and they complete the project by December 31st, again, the start date would be delayed. The first year incentive would be based on the, I guess, partial construction year, if you want to call it that. And right now, I think that investment's around $8 million. The final 4 years of the agreement would capture the full $26 million of investment. And based on our calculations, that would come to a total of $556,500 spread out over 5 years. And in your memo, I gave you the proposed scenario laid out in this format, where you can see where the numbers come from. Right now, under the current agreement, and again, that assumes the December 31st, 2016 completion date, Daimler would not receive any incentive grant for the first year because the project was delayed. So the project would really start with the second year, $8 million, and then Daimler would receive 3 years of the agreement at the full 26. And as you see there, it would be $427,313. So quite a bit of difference there for the grant. And there's that calculation. And just to summarize the impact for Daimler, under the current amendment, again, they would receive a little over $427,000. That number would increase to $556,500 if the agreement were modified. That's a difference of $129,187. The impact on the county is a little more difficult to explain because each agreement would have a different start and end date. I mean, we're talking about a current agreement now that would start, really, in a sense, we're in year 3 of the current agreement. And the Second Amendment would start, of course, with this, with the $8 million assessed as of January 1st of this year. But in the end, if you look at the 5 incentivized years, Rowan County would retain $142,439 under the current amendment. And again, this number is lower than it should be because year 1 saw no investment increase due to the construction delay. But if the modification were approved, the county would retain $185,502 over 5 years. In closing, it's a $26 million investment in Rowan County. We've got 50 people called back to work. Again, Daimler will receive about $556,000 over 5 years compared to the $427 with the current amendment. And the county will receive $185 over 5 years versus $142 with the current amendment. And again, it's an opportunity to support a major Rowan County employer. Any questions about the numbers before I turn it over to the folks at Daimler?
Scott, what is the minimum employment requirement on this since it's modified?
It would be the same, Commissioner, as the First Amendment, which is 1,500 people.
1,500? Okay,
yes, sir.
thank you.
I know it's a lot of numbers to throw at you, but I tried to simplify it best I could. So, well, if there's no questions, I'd like to turn it over to... Sorry.
My understanding is that they are, at this point, hiring second shift back and expecting to hire over 700 employees. Is that correct?
But that's my understanding of it, yes, sir. And again, that's not tied to this agreement, but that is what's going on out there at the time, yes. So, okay, well, if no other questions, I'd like to turn it over to Hennings and Davis to say a few words.
Okay, so thank you, Scott, basically. County Commissioner, Chairman Adz, and fellow members of the commission here. I just talked to my colleague Dave Trebbing. It has been more or less 2.5 years now since we were the first time here and basically getting to know you guys and applying for the support. We want to first of all say thank you. Thank you for the great collaboration and the insight and all the support we have gotten over the years. And also thank you for the understanding that, you know, there was a plan initially, but then over time we realized the market was not really allowing us to expand big time. But the market is back right now, and we are really happy to see that now we definitely need to invest into this logistics center. And when it comes to, you know, supporting the community, it's not just about the people we employ, basically. It's about the type of people we need, right? It's about the qualification we need. And I'm happy to see now, after almost 3 years of running the Cleveland truck plant, that we have constantly invested into our people. If you see the processes which are today on the lines in the different areas applied, it is something where many people had to continually invest, had to familiarize themselves with new processes, etc. And the same will be true also for the new logistics center. When you invest into a new logistics center, this is a major investment which is not happening every year. It happens every 10, 20 years, right? And of course, at that moment, you are looking for the best available technology. So many people think of it as just another box with parts inside and warehouse activities. But what it really is, we are applying the most modern logistics systems on the market available. So, as we heard it from Scott already, the projected completion time is going to be in December this year, and then we're going to slowly start using it. But the inside of that building is something where our employees can further grow and acquire knowledge, you know, which is definitely a major investment into themselves also. So, having said this, this logistics center is a little bit, I guess, an example for the stronger, you know, economy, for the reviving of the area, for, you know, for all those things happening. And we had just a word with Rod Kreider here, our economic development colleague, that more and more companies are knocking on the door here. And I hope that this is a sign that more investment is to come. So I want to say thank you to all of you for the support and for the consideration that it takes a little longer. But I'm telling you, the market is good, and we are just launching the newest generation of our trucks, and the order board is looking very favorable. So I believe it is a wise investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henning. David, anything?
Thank you very much. I couldn't say it any better than Henning. But one thing I want to say is, on behalf of Daimler, the parent company of the Cleveland Assembly Plant, this is our shining star in the assembly world. We have 33 facilities here in the United States, and this is, without a doubt, building the best product, the most efficient product for the customer demand. And one reason is because of the great working relationship we have with the County Council and with Rod and with Scott and the economic development community. I have the pleasure of working with the economic development professionals around the country with these facilities, and by far and away, you've got the best team here. So thank you for this close working relationship. Thank you for the great economic base that you set here so that this operation can thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Trebbing. All right, so we will open the floor. We're going to have a public hearing on this incentive agreement. So if anyone would like to speak for or against, anyone has anything to say about it, now would be the time to do that. All right, hearing no one, we'll close the hearing, and commissioners will discuss and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to amend the current Daimler agreement to the one that's suggested by EDC.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second? All right, we have a second. Any further discussion on this?
Well, I'd just like to say that we would like to thank Daimler for investing this $26 million into our community. And it shows great faith in the product that you're putting out there, and you're showing great faith in the employees in Rowan County, and we certainly appreciate that beyond any measure that we can show this afternoon. So thank you.
Ditto those remarks. Henning's always invited us out and given us a lot of information. We appreciate the relationship that we have with your organization, so thank you. All right, anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all very much. Scott, Rod, thank you. All right, the next item is Aaron. Is Aaron here? Aaron Poplin? Shane? Shane, you going to do it? All right. So we have quasi-judicial hearing for CUP 02-18. And I have a required speech I need to read. The hearing for consideration of CUP 02-18 is now in session and will focus on an application submitted by James and Karen Bullard to construct a residential storage facility on tax parcel 821005 located at the 800 block of Thompson Road. If you feel that any member of the board may have a conflict of interest in hearing the case, please address the board now prior to any testimony or information being presented. When the board enters into deliberations to decide the case, no further testimony may be presented. The board will render one of the following three decisions. One, they'll approve the permit as requested or with additional conditions. Two, continue the request, or three, deny the request. All parties who plan to testify in this case may come forward and be sworn in. Those who testify must state their name and address at the podium for the benefit of the board's clerk. All material presented must be given to the clerk and will become part of the record. This board can only accept sworn testimony. No hearsay evidence is admissible, and Mr. Shane Stewart will present the case for the county. Welcome.
Thank you. Shane Stewart, Rowan County Planning Office, 402 North Main Street, Salisbury. So the Bullards heard about all the activity up in Cleveland, and they wanted to come up from Cumming, Georgia to be part of this. So here's Mr. Bullard here. So the property they selected is a 1 acre lot off of Thompson Road. If you look at the vicinity map here, it's about halfway between Woodleaf Barber and Highway 801. But the residential storage facility, as the board knows, is the accessory structure before the home. The Bullards do have approval for a septic system for a 3-bedroom home, and probably either late this year or early next we'll be building the future home site, but for right now they're requesting this permit for the 1,500 square foot storage building here. This is a snippet from the site plan. You see the two structures here, the septic system. Whenever we actually get some dry weather, then that will be put in. But they're doing it in stages, and again, moving up from 2 states removed here, so it takes time. But this is the type building that they're looking at constructing on site, just for housing personal goods and equipment. A few pictures around the area that's kind of not really easy to see, but site surrounded by residential uses, and this is the existing site, a storage building per the assessor's records from 1950 that would be removed with the construction of the new home. The request meets all the standards of section 6010 in the ordinance. and the conditional use criteria as well, which Mr. Poplin laid out in the staff report here for you. So as usual, has findings. We do have some example findings being passed around. And then lastly, motions for those findings as well, and then the request. Any questions of the board?
Any questions? All right. Would you like, anything you would like to say? Welcome from Cumming, Georgia. Stand in front of the microphone and.
Thank you, sir. I just want to thank you for considering our request.
Well, good. Well, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right. Well, thank you. You may be seated. We will open the floor to any public comment if we have any. If we have anyone who would like to speak on this. Hearing none, we'll close the public comment. And commissioners, we are open for discussion. We have 3 findings of fact been provided for us. Is there any discussion before we embark on the findings of fact? All right, then, Commissioner Green.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present to the board and say that the findings that the development of the property in accordance with the proposed conditions will not materially endanger the public health or safety. In fact, that this request complies with all 8 specific requirements identified in Section 21-60-10 for residential storage facilities. The fact that the proposed structure is subject to the compliance with applicable building code standards.
All right, that's made in the form of a motion. Do we have a second? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye. I'd like to make the motion that the development of the property in accordance with the proposed conditions will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, or that the development is a public necessity. And in fact, that no material evidence was presented suggesting this request would injure property values.
All right, there's a motion. Do we have a second? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye. I'd like to make a motion that the location and the character of the development in accordance with the proposed conditions will be in general harmony with the area in which it is located and in general conformity with any adopted county plans. The fact that the proposed building square footage is less than the allowable 10% of the total lot size for accessory structures or residentially developed lots.
All right, it's a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And do we have a motion to approve CUP-02-18?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. So the motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to public hearing for Chapter 20 amendments for the Northeast Rowan Water System.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is the public hearing for amendments to Chapter 20, which is the utilities section of the Rowan County Code of Ordinances. These amendments propose adding a new Article 3 to the chapter, which would specifically relate to the Northeast Rowan Water System. In September of 2017, the Public Water Supply Branch approved the county's water system management plan, which basically authorized the county to construct and operate a water system in the Dukeville, Long Ferry Road, Leonard Road area. The majority of the elements in these text amendments were included in parts of a resolution this board adopted with the city of Salisbury, and were also included in the water system management plan. And I'll go through these real quickly, but if you got any questions, please stop and ask. Again, Article 3 is a new section. The purpose and intent section acknowledges that the county has developed a water system in the Long Ferry and Leonard Road area that has the capacity to serve a broader area identified in the boundary. We've also designated Salisbury Rowan Utilities as the operator. The authority enforcement section includes statutory references for operation and administration. Section 20-62 recognizes that Salisbury Rowan Utility will manage this system based on its standard operating procedures. The rates and charges for connections were adopted by the commission August 7th, based on an email from the manager and included on that agenda. The minimum bill is $68.50 for 5,000 gallons. Usage above that is charged at $6.35 per 1,000 gallons. You see what the residential tap fees are for 3/4 inch as well as an inch, and commercial taps are calculated at material and labor costs. Again, these were already approved as a policy by this commission August 7th, 2017. Probably one of the more important questions for water connections, which basically is a standard for connections as well. Connections for residential and commercial structures is not required if you have a functioning well. The exception to this, if you have a non-operational well and you're located more than 500 feet from the water line, you're still not required to connect. However, if you're within that 500 feet distance of the water line and environmental health, the county's environmental health department notifies you that you have a well that is failing, you will be required to connect. No questions? Good. Continuing with water extensions or the connection standards, if you have a replacement or renovated structure, you may connect, you're not required to connect. New development in proximity to the water line will be required to connect based on these standards that are in the county subdivision ordinance. These have been in effect since 1994. 9 to 20 lots, it's 400 feet, 21 to 50, it's 800 feet. 51 to 100 lots is 1,500 feet, and if you're over 100 lots and you're within 2,000 feet, you're required to connect to the county's water line. Any outside water line connections are going to be subject to this board's approval. New individual service requests in item E would be submitted to Salisbury Rowan Utilities. Section 20-65 recognizes that the county is the sole entity that provides public water supply within the boundary. And these definitions on the following pages were taken directly from that city-county agreement adopted in May of 2017. Again, we define the water system, SRU, the service boundary, system components, development modification, operation, and the standard severability and conflicting provisions items. This is the boundary where this ordinance will apply. This has been advertised on 2 separate occasions. The county attorney and I have both looked at this. The SRU folks have looked at it as well. It seems to be in order with what we need to manage this system. Unlike other ordinances and amendments that are considered by this board from our department, you do not need a statement of consistency or reasonableness. But you do need to conduct a public hearing. After the public hearing is closed, you just need a simple motion to adopt or not these amendments. I will tell you too that if you do not unanimously adopt this ordinance, you will see it again at your next meeting. Correct, clerk? All right. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
So if they have an existing well that fails, because they do, they're not precluded from replacing that well, or?
Well, if they're within 500 feet, they do. If they're within 500 feet of the water line, this ordinance specifies that they will reconnect, or they will connect to this system. If they're beyond 500 feet, they can choose to connect or not.
And that ordinance was passed when?
That's what you're voting on today.
Oh, I thought
This policy.
I thought the 500 feet was adopted earlier.
Well, this board, as well, in an agreement with the city of Salisbury, adopted these standards, and that was part of the water system management plan that was approved by the public water supply section. So these were adopted in concept from the resolution. I took those resolution components and put them in to this new section of the ordinance, and you're formalizing that today by adopting it.
Okay.
But you set that policy back in May of 2017. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Mr. Chair? So again, if they do have a failing well and they're within 500 feet of the water line, this ordinance would require them to tap on.
Mr. Chairman. Hibbs, I'm just going to reiterate something because I had some phone calls. We're not forcing anybody onto the water system. And just because that you're in this map area doesn't mean that we're going to run water to your property. So far, I know just the Longs Ferry Road is all we're running. So we had calls from other people that were inside this zone thinking we were going to run water to their property. But it's just because you're in there doesn't mean you're going to have water run to your property. So some people thought that, you know how rumors are, that we were going to run water out to this whole area and that we were going to force everybody onto it. So that's not what we're doing.
Any other comments? If not, then we'll open public hearing for folks to speak. Anyone?
All right. Only question I have is what constitutes a failing well? If the well is not usable to drink water from, or say your pump goes out, if your pump goes out and all you need to do is replace the pump in the well, does that constitute a failing well?
That's a good question.
I think typically repair is one thing, and replacement when it actually fails. And there's another question, and it's interesting. The city of Salisbury has an ordinance that's similar to this. And when people come in and ask for permits for secondary wells, for watering wells, irrigation wells, we don't prohibit those. It's just the potable drinking water well. And this is intended to create that natural growth in that direction. But no, repair of an existing well, we typically, that's just permitted in its regular course. But it's when a well actually fails and you would have to go and dig a new well for potable water is when this would apply.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Dees.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? All right, if not, then we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the amendments to Chapter 20 for the Northeast Rowan Water System.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Mr. Stewart, consider SNIA 01-18 request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows, with these type of requests, from the mandate from the watershed standards back in 1994, there was an option given to the board that you could remove 10% of your watershed and devote up to 70% impervious coverage for those projects. And zoom in here on this site plan. So we have an application here from Terramore Development, and the applicant is here in case the board has any questions. Can't get that quite right. So the site is located at Highway 152 and Crest Venture Drive. If you're familiar with that location, it's the access to the Carson High School. But the property currently here is a little over 3 acres on that corner lot. The proposal would reduce that lot approximately in half. This portion here would be combined with the residual acreage owned by Adams Unlimited. So the request would be for intensity allocation to remove this 1.5 and some change acre lot from the watershed standards, Coldwater Creek. So you see in the packet of information in the staff report and calculations, when you're in the watershed 4 protected area, you're allowed 24% with curb and gutter, 36% without. The site plan shows curb and gutter, and it would exceed that 24%. So the request here, again, is for this portion only and for the retail center. There's currently 0 acreage removed from that watershed, but you notice in staff comments we mentioned about the corridor study for Old Betty Ford Road, and we can remove a total just under 500 acres before we have to require engineered stormwater devices for projects. Any questions of the board on this request?
So the majority of the property is going to be impervious.
51%, correct.
51%.
Yes.
Does that include the roof?
That would be anything here that's not going to be grassed.
Okay.
So it's your entire paved parking area, the structure itself.
Has the have you ever looked at just doing a gravel lot versus a paved lot in trying to capture the water where it's at rather than having it run?
If it's a gravel lot, there is an option that it's not considered impervious, but by and large, unless they have a certain standard, and there's a definition Diener came up with, or DEQ, a couple of years ago we adopted that certain gravel is not considered impervious. But again, it's still going to have a similar level of runoff.
Well, your staff comments really lay out what we're being asked to do. While this property is not within the I-85 South Corridor land use study area, nearly all of the study area is within the Coldwater Creek watershed. Page 17 of the plan indicates once the 497.5 acres eligible for this allocation have been exhausted, the county would need to amend our development ordinances to incorporate a process and program for engineered stormwater controls for projects that exceed the impervious coverage limitations. So what we're being asked to do is to remove 1.576 acres of this tax parcel from the built-upon area. That's what you're asking us to do.
If that's removed, then you take that from the 497.5, correct?
We don't need to have a public hearing for that, correct?
No, sir. Again, I just mentioned the applicant here in case you have any questions.
Okay.
Jane, I have another question. Do you have a slide that shows this lot from a bigger perspective as far as where it's located?
So this is your vicinity map. This is the China Grove zoning jurisdiction, Carson High School as well. There's 3 lots here in red that are zoned CBI. This is Minas Road, but it's this lot, half of that front lot.
All right, is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to say anything?
Do I need to be sworn in?
No.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Daniel Amazon with Tier-Moore Development, and actually I did want to address one question that you had about the pervious, because that has come up on some other projects, and because our tenant is Dollar General, and they have some standards that they have to maintain, not just for consistency, but because they have tractor trailers that service those sites. one of the problems that they've had in the past is that the pervious concrete solutions that they've got right now, they haven't been easy to maintain long-term. And so it becomes a cost that they don't like to include in their, I guess, in their operation, only because they can't guarantee that it's consistent.
Okay.
And so, but I appreciate the opportunity to have you guys look at it and hope that we can add the store to the county. Thank you.
I think it'd be a busy location.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And actually, are there any other questions since I'm up here? No? Okay. All right, thanks again.
All right, Commissioners, any questions, any comments? All right, do we have a motion to approve the SNIA 01-1A request? All right, we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All right, any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Hall. Finally.
I asked Mr. Bergen to come up with me, if you don't mind. Would that be okay?
Did you bring these folks with you?
I plead the fifth.
Well, sometimes when you got a big room, there's trouble. Sometimes when you got a big room, there's good stuff happening.
I hope that you'll find that this is good stuff.
So today's good stuff. Well, welcome.
A lot of these folks are from Cleveland. We don't start any trouble up there.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to start this thing. Okay, I'm sorry. Because I had this software changed since I saw it last. It used to have a little screen at the bottom, and that was what I was looking for. Yeah, Melissa O'Lean also joined me here. We'll go ahead with slide one. Currently, the citizens of the most populous zip codes, or the most populous areas of West Rowan, must travel at least 10 miles, maybe 12, even further, to come to the main library. Looking at those zip codes, we determined there's a population of close to 11,000 people in those zip codes. And what's interesting is we used to serve that population when it was much smaller, and we served it with the bookmobile. If you want to go ahead. Mm-hmm. And that started, this is the library's first bookmobile, 1945. And that is the main library building. If you recognize the area on the back of the building there, that's not the current garage. That was where the offices are for technical services. So it was a small garage that started with that. And we served this area of West Rowan and rural Rowan County until 1991 with a bookmobile. As you can see, the picture in the right-hand corner is our bookmobile in 1991, shortly before we retired it. And it was obsolete. It was more than 20 years old. And we were looking at having to replace the bookmobile, and I was in library school working for Mr. Phil Barton, and I had to do this project that said, determine the cost of circulation and service to an area. And we did that, and it came out to be real expensive. One of our most expensive services to serve the limited number of people we were beginning to see. Because as you know, from 1945 to 1991, the population changed. 1945, we had lots of stay-at-home moms. That's who we were serving, them and their children. By 1991, most moms were working. So that was part of the reason that we decided to shut down our bookmobile service. At the same time, we were looking at adding a branch in West Rowan. And the town of Cleveland stepped up and said, we'll give you $50,000 to help you. And, you know, times just haven't lined up politically and financially since 1991 for those things to happen. Mr. Barton told me he thought that a West Rowan branch had been in our long-range plan for 38 years. So last year, or shortly before,
I became aware of this combined West Rowan school idea. I'm sorry, I skipped something. I need to go back. I don't want to get there yet. In 2007, when I became the library director, we set up, with Mayor John Steele, a lending library in Town Hall, and that was an honor system. And what that was is we took some withdrawn books that we had and put them out there and said, sign them out and bring them back when you can. And we did that for a while, and it worked pretty well. When Mayor Gabriel, I'm sorry, I've called, came into office, he said, we have this building next door that we could let you use, the old doctor's office. And so we expanded that collection to 100 square feet. So that's what we have right now, 100 square feet. In 2008, our friends of the library, which you see some of them here, began providing funding to do summer reading programs in that area. And so last year we did a 7-week program in the Cleveland Town Hall, and we had 45 children registered from that area, and they read 525 hours. They liked the program so well that our attendance, not individual people who registered, but our total attendance over that 7 weeks was 367. All right, so we can go to the next slide now. In 2017 or thereabout, I began discussing the option for a new library in what is the current elementary school. Aaron Church and I discussed that, and you as a board at your retreat saw that a West Rowan library would be a priority, and acting upon that, you passed in the budget funding to hire an architect to take a look at the facilities. And we did take a look at those facilities. Bill Bergen did that with me. And we determined that this project is very feasible. This is, as you see here, is the current library building that's on Cleveland Elementary School. We think it was built around the year 2000. It is a freestanding open structure facility. It has a separate standalone HVAC system. The interior finish is overall in good shape. It is, in fact, freestanding from the 3-story school building, even though it does have a wall it adjoins, but it's freestanding. It is connected to, could be connected to the existing auditorium with the addition of restroom facilities and a HVAC system. We could create a library here that could function very well for the Cleveland West Rowan community. All right. So here's the breezeway that we actually could reuse to connect the facilities. This is the auditorium facility. It currently seats 500 people. And what we're talking about is breaking it up into seating for 200 in one portion, and then 2 smaller meeting rooms with a catering kitchen. And this could be used for all kinds of community events. We are talking about, when we bring a modern library to the West Rowan area, we're talking about bringing broadband internet. There's the elementary school and construction in the background. We see this as a building block for this area. Broadband internet is hard to get in the Cleveland area, and it's expensive. With schools more and more using no textbooks, but computers, the use of broadband internet is really important. We plan to have that internet available, not just in the library, but in the parking area 24 hours a day. So you got a late night homework assignment, you can sit in your mom and dad's car and get it done if you have to, instead of going to McDonald's in Salisbury. Again, we'll talk about a second building block that a modern library will bring to the West Rowan area is meeting facilities. And we'll be doing children's programming there. We hope to get more and more children in the area in our reading program. And we know from talking to the people in the West Rowan area that spaces for social functions are hard to get now. The Woodley Fire Department sold their older building to Martin Marietta, and that took that option away. So we want to help fill that space by allowing social functions within that facility. A third building block that we see for the West Rowan area is the close proximity to the school. Right now, our library system collaborates with the school system in many ways. We have the Rowan One Card program. Every student in Rowan County Schools has a library card. We do Books and Bites, which is our outreach program that goes around to the summer feeding sites and provides books to those children who are there to receive meals over the summer. Our Friends group in the library does a Stories by the Millstream Festival for every second grader in the entire county. We have a summer reading Readers Cup. And you know who won it in 2015? This is for students who have signed up in the reading program and have read the most, Woodleaf Elementary. Well, a smaller elementary in the school. I mean, smaller elementary school. Last year, the school system and the library collaborated with a summer reading program for all elementary and middle school students. And at Mount Ulla, Julie Heilig, who's the media center specialist there, signed up all of the children in the school for the summer reading program, every child. Another building block that we'll be bringing to this community is a quality collection of books. We heard some folks talk about the importance of books. We also will bring magazines and electronic media, classic works of literature, and contemporary favorites. We'll have a collection of several thousand books and numerous magazines. But we also will have the latest thing in technology is electronic audio books, electronic text, books and text and electronic videos. And we will use a system very similar to what you see when you go to a Redbox. You'll be able to look at this electronic catalog and press a button. It'll download the book, video, or music to your device, and you'll be able to go from there. And our friends have graciously funded that project. So that is going to happen very soon in our 3 current libraries, and it will also happen in the West Rowan area. We will have a state-of-the-art computer lab where we can teach classes on how to use computers and resources that help the average person in their daily life. So this is what we're proposing, is bringing this kind of facility to West Rowan in an existing building that would cost us much more to build than if we renovate. We have some proposed hours that would, as you can see here, a 10 to 7 schedule, Monday through Thursday, and because no classwork is due on Saturday morning for the most part, we'll have off on Friday at that facility and open on Saturday. That's the proposal. It will be require about 2.5 staff members to operate, so it will be economically operated. So I would ask you to consider this project, to endorse it, to ask our county attorney and staff to help us secure the property, and give me permission to fundraise for this project. So those are 3 things I'd ask you to do for us today. And I have Bill Bergen here to answer questions about the facility and show you the proposed site plan. And I can answer questions, and Bill can as well.
I'll be brief. I think most all of you kind of know the Cleveland Elementary School, but this is their existing campus. These dark spots are kind of the two buildings that exist that we're interested in. And then this is the plan that they are proposing, or we're proposing, that you renovate those two buildings and then add a bathroom addition in between to connect them. So that at night, if this facility were open, they could get to the bathrooms without having to go through the library, and during the day, without having to open this facility, they could get to the restrooms. So it would be very flexible. And then in terms of the property, I think what we're proposing is that they get a pretty good hunk of the property that the school's on, big enough to have a parking lot, but also the playground area to the right of the, or left of the school. That's also, you know, part of the request, I think, that the project would be, you know, asking for, is could we get that property too? And I think that's been proposed to the school system. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those. If not, any question, I'll do the best I can. Doesn't even have to be about this. I'll just do my best. Oh, well, don't ask that.
Bergen, has there been any discussions about who's going to maintain the playground and the facility?
Not for me, but Jeff may have an answer.
I can answer that question. Don Brinkle and I have discussed that with Rowan County Parks, and the discussion centered around we would pick up the mowing, and that the library has mowing contracts, and that they would maintain the playground equipment. So that's as far as the discussion has gone at this point.
Okay, is the city of Cleveland participating in this at all?
I have assurances that they will.
Okay.
I apologize for my nerves too. It's the first time in front of you guys and on television.
And you are a scary bunch.
Jeff, would you look back there and wave and say hello? So, yeah, there you go.
Bill, I've gotten myself in trouble before thinking, talking about bathroom facilities. Now, the bathroom facilities that are proposed, how many people, because we're talking about the auditorium being able to have 300 people there at one time. Are we going to have adequate bathroom facilities with this?
We would actually, the code gives us a formula. And so we'll do the people count based on life safety, exit, and so forth. But then we'll use that number of people to compute how many bathrooms you need. And so we will have what it takes to match up with the code for both the library and the auditorium operating simultaneously, quite frankly.
Okay. And Cleveland Elementary is on the city water and sewer system.
Yes.
So there's no problem with that.
Shouldn't be any problem with that.
Other questions for them?
Bill, how are the two buildings connected? Is that a walkway?
Yeah, the walkway is actually there now. That's how the auditorium is connected to the school. It actually has a breezeway that goes through. And so we'll kind of continue that. We'll pick it up at the end of the breezeway. Now we will close that off with windows so that it's more of a sun passage than it would be an open breezeway, but it's there now.
Be indoors and secure.
Yeah, you can see that.
There.
Yeah, that slide to the left, what we'll do is fill those openings, and that'll be a pass through.
Okay, so they're not going to have to walk outside to go from one building to the next?
No.
So right now, there's no bathroom facilities for either the auditorium or the library because they're provided by the school.
Yeah, they're inside the two-story structure, and that'll be demolished.
Well, I'd say that we can't say that it would be demolished. I don't think the school system has made that decision yet, but we could work with this facility even if the schools decide to keep the school building, because we could actually place the bathrooms behind the library and connect them to the auditorium that way.
Right. Yeah, and that's true. We made the decision, this is what it would look like if that school were demolished, not it had to be just because we thought it wouldn't be.
Any other questions? All right, we're being asked for three things today. One, that we just endorse this project. We're not endorsing the cost because we don't know that yet. We're asking to basically say to the community that we're for this. That we're being asked to instruct County Attorney J.D.'s to begin formal negotiations with the Rowan Public School System to secure the property for use by the Rowan County government. And that discussion, I think, is already happening a little bit, maybe not with Jay. And third, to give permission to Director Jeff Hall, the Rowan Public Library Foundation, and the Friends of Rowan Public Library to begin private fundraising for a West Branch library. So I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
And then if we have other discussion.
I'd just like to say that, that this would be a wonderful facility for Cleveland. The auditorium part of it, to have a place that many people can meet. It's hard in any community to have a nice centrally located facility that folks could rent out either for reunions or civic clubs or whatever, depending on what the library says that they're going to let happen up there with that. But it's still wonderful use for the city or for the whole community, not just the city. But if you're looking at Mount Ulla, you're looking at Bear Poplar or Woodleaf, that's all close enough that they can come. They don't have to go to Salisbury or even out of county to find a place that they can have some get-togethers there. So on behalf of the community, I really think this would be a wonderful addition up there for an old building that's just going to be torn down especially.
I'd also like to say that reusing an old building is a great thing, and we're glad that you took a hard look at that. It's going to save money, and we'll get the project done that much quicker. And to the Friends of the Library and the librarians that are here, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you do, because I was one of those kids that grew up in the library. Every Saturday morning in the summer, we went to the library and got books, and my mom was one of those that said, read, read, read. So thank you for carrying on that tradition.
Well, I'm going to say that it's been a long time coming, but we're almost there. I think I've said it before, and I'll say before I was informed, and probably before I got involved as an elected official, I assumed that no one used the library anymore because I didn't go to the library. But standing out at the South Rowan Library for hours and hours and hours and hours during the election, I seen how many people came through, and I was kind of astonished, assuming that seeing all these people, I thought they were coming to vote, but they're all going in the library. And so I started talking to people when they came out, and I said I was just surprised at the amount of people that use it. And then after getting on here, I realized what a viable resource it is, especially this branch in that part of the county is going to be such a good not just for Cleveland but for the whole area. So I'm excited that we're getting where we are. We got a little bit further to go, but and I will echo what Judy said. I like it when we can reuse older things, because it seems a lot of the older things are built better than newer things. So anyway, we're almost there, and hopefully we'll get there soon.
If I could just address you just a moment, if you come to the library headquarters, we do sometimes some informal counts. And just about every hour of the day, there's at least 100 people in that facility.
And I'd like to say before the chairman has anything to comment about, I was not driving that bus in 1945.
That's good.
Listen, there's a lot of good stuff going on in Cleveland. We just heard from our Daimler friends, and they're once again hiring there, and that's good news. Our EDC folks have been real active down there. There's There's 2 big industrial sites that have been brought on board. Let's see, one is the Brown site, one is the Coastal site, about 250 acres. Both have been accepted in the Duke Site Readiness Program. A lot of stuff is happening in Cleveland that's exciting, and we can say that for most communities across Rowan. So this is long overdue, and we're excited for that community, certainly. So thank you. Anything else? Mr. Pierce, anything?
I'd just like to say I spent 5 years going to Cleveland Elementary when I was a little boy, and it was an old building then. And it certainly is well deserving for the use of the community. And I'd like to say, too, that to the lady that thought you're a red-headed stepchild, no, you're not. Economic conditions drive a lot of these things, and right now we're in a position where we can do the things that we should have done a long time ago. There's a lot of projects throughout the county that should have been done decades ago, and this is one of them. But I'm glad to see we can bring this to an end that's beneficial for everybody in that area. I think the new school is going to be magnificent when it's finished. I think it's finally going to let people realize that Cleveland is growing, and Cleveland is on the edge of being one of our best communities in the county. So I look forward to this, and I look forward to the library being an integral part of that. And the only thing I hope is that we have to add on to it sometime.
There is room for expansion.
Good, good.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're all talked out. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Jeffrey, thank you for your work. Bill, thank you.
Talk to Mr. Chairman here. I'd let you talk all day.
My father was when he first graduated class from the Cleveland School, and my mother was a librarian at that school. And in 1945, I went to the bookmobile, whatever they call it, that book, and I remember going down where it was. So, and I didn't see you, Mr. Green. It's just wonderful to see that this is happening.
Good, thank you. All right, Jeff didn't leave, did he?
No, I'm here.
Okay. So now we have the Friends of the Rowan Public Library are going to come forward for a presentation. Thank you very much.
Since you allowed us to begin fundraising, we thought we'd start with a big announcement. So Sammy Henshaw is president of our Friends group, and she has a presentation to make to the board.
Thank you for endorsing the project, and a small donation of $15,000 from the Friends to kick off the fundraising, and hope this comes to a complete end in a few years.
Well, thank you very much.
We'll present that to the chair.
You all are welcome to come back every 2 weeks if you want to bring a check. But you're welcome back anytime, and thank you for your generosity and the great investment, not only in Cleveland but in Rowan County. It's very much appreciated, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll say that we approved this 3 minutes ago. We already got $15,000. We'll have it paid for by tomorrow.
You did the math already, didn't you? We'll hand that to the money lady. Well, thank you. Rowan County marketing update. Let's see, who's Mike and Rod?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, commissioners. And before I get started on this subject, let me say, maybe Chairman Ed's already said this, but we are very excited about the potential for the Cleveland area, too. There's going to be a lot, we think, happening out there over the next few years. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Growing Rowan Marketing Initiative. There was a group here before you 2 weeks ago who gave a presentation by the marketing committee of Growing Rowan that proposed an $80,000 expenditure for Rowan County to tell its story better. And you asked us to come back to you today with more information about the budget and with about the advisory committee that was proposed to be put together to oversee this initiative. And subsequent to that, we did meet with the county manager and with the county attorney to talk about it a little bit and see, get their advice. And the advice that we received was that it might be most expeditious and provide the most oversight if you were to structure this $80,000 as a budget amendment to the EDC as opposed to trying to give it to a nonprofit group that really has no organizational standing. We presented that idea to our board, which had previously agreed to be the fiscal agent for these funds. And this would take us into a little bit of a more formal role, and they agreed that that would be something that they would be willing to take on. The funds would still be restricted. The funds would still be overseen by an advisory council, and I think we had listed the different representatives there. We would name those representatives in conjunction with the county commissioners. And then the oversight would be provided by 3 different mechanisms. Number one, because we're the EDC, these committee meetings would be open to the public. So they would be subject to the Open Meetings Act. Secondly, the county commissioners appoint 7 of our 10 board members. And so you have adequate representation there to make sure that all your interests are being served. And then thirdly, we have a board liaison from the county commissioners in Chairman Eds, who regularly attends all of our meetings. So that is what we have come up with, and if you're agreeable to doing it that way, we would certainly be willing to help facilitate it in that manner. And Mike is going to talk a little bit more about the budget and how the money will be spent and in what areas. Mike?
Thank you, Rod. Just to recap, thank you, County Commissioners, for allowing us to present today. And I'm here representing the marketing group, which is co-chaired by Paula Dibley, as well as roughly 26 other people throughout our county. To recap from our last presentation, you will see here's the rough outline of the plan as set forth. Branding strategy, segment, silos, ambassadors, blogs. It's a lot of assets that need to be developed, website development, SEO, social media, and also development of editorial. Our group got together and put together this rough budget, brand strategy and development. You'll see at the very top, digital assets development, which are websites, social media channels, tremendously going into videos and content development, because we do have to position out the good things in our county in a good light out to recruit and to bring in families. I mean, we heard today that from Daimler, they're adding, jobs. We're looking to add other facilities here locally, and all these facilities need people here. And so we need to make sure that our county is presenting the best light they can throughout the country and throughout the region. And that is what the structure of this branding and marketing would consist of. Obviously, there's digital media placement. Social media is the best bang for your buck, so a lot of it will be social media, online digital marketing through banner ads that have proven success through other organizations locally. And the key here is utilizing those silo ambassadors. And basically, there'll be people that are solely focused on the 8 areas. I'm going to move the slide one time so you can kind of see these 8 areas. There'd be one that represents each one of them. And their job is to take within those silos, connect all of the, if it's in the education, all of our educational, meaning Rowan Salisbury schools, the community colleges, the private schools, Salisbury Academy, North Hills, Sacred Heart, all of them share that information within themselves, but then also coordinate a concise and aggressive marketing to share within the other group. And as we said earlier, exponentially just multiplying this out kicks it into millions and millions of connection points that we have through our social media. Obviously, we have public relations to push stories in magazines and regional publications. That's very, very strong. And obviously, there's administrative and account service that's been estimated by the group in order to present a budget to you guys. Again, silos, social media silo, social media presence by those various silos, and then by using the multiplier effect, which is a very conservative based on what the AMA actually recommends is 338 is the average, and we've only done it with 100. Again, the target audience would be external and internal. If you remember going back to Steve Chandler and all the focus groups, external and internal, that he did, we, the citizens of Rowan County, were our biggest critics. You know, the outgoing people had much more positive attributes and positive things to say about us. We were our own worst enemy. So we have to also educate and promote within ourselves as well as outgoing, because those people will then promote out as citizens of Rowan County. Any questions?
What is the current fund balance of the EDC? Well, it used to be about $150,000. That's the reason I'm asking. And if you've got $150,000 of taxpayer dollars already that you haven't spent, why do you need some more?
Commissioner Pierce, this is not a request of the EDC. This is I'm sorry, Commissioner Pierce, this is not a request of the EDC. This is a request of the Growing Rowan Marketing Committee.
I understand that, but this is going to be part of your organization from what you're telling me.
That has been, we've been advised that that would be maybe the best way to handle it.
Okay, then if it's going to be part of your organization and you've got the money, why aren't you funding it? Why are you asking us to give another $80,000 when you're sitting on twice that much money?
Again, the request is not from the EDC.
This don't make any sense.
Sure. Can I get some input? Mr. Pierce, the target audience for this isn't to recruit business. Okay, the EDC's function, as it's set forth, is to recruit companies and businesses here. This is to recruit people and families here. Okay, as we heard in the previous group that came 2 weeks ago, when you go online and you search and you want to look at whether you want to come here, all we get is the negatives that's out there. There's been a lot of negatives in the past. It was in the early 2000s. It was in the late 1990s and in those years. But this is about recruiting people to move here. Rowan County has become a bedroom community if you look at the statistics. There's more retirees moving here than new families that are going to have children in our schools and are going to work in our plants. Daimler, you know, hiring as many people as they are. We got other facilities that possibly could be another one that's coming this week to visit, could bring another 700 plus jobs to here. We need workers to work in these jobs, work in these places, and we want them to live here. My agency, and this is what really hurts me, I work with companies all over this county, and it just rips me up when there's a company based here in Rowan County that has facilities in two other states across the county, and when they have executives move here, they immediately say, I'm going to live in Iredell County. Why? Because their schools are better. That's not true, okay? They have a better lake. That's not true. They have all these things, but they're getting that information off the internet and in searches and reaching out and finding the various publications that are out there. That's the positive message that we have to market our county in. It's not about, his job is to get business here, get capital investment of business and industry here. This is to recruit and bring people here to work in those factories. That keeps our taxes low, because otherwise you build houses, you've got to build schools, you've got to build all the other things. We have to keep those here as well. That is the target of this. There is no duplication between what this is set forth and the demographics and the people that are doing and what the EDC is doing. I hope that somewhat clarifies a little bit.
It does.
It's okay. But thank you.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Could you show me the list of the members?
Going back? Right.
Yeah, that was.
This one?
Yep. Now, did you say we would appoint 7 of those? Is that?
But, no, you have, excuse me,
No, what I said was 7 of our 10 board members for the EDC are appointed by the Board of Commissioners.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Currently, our current organization structure includes 7 appointees from this board.
so technically those people control this.
I got you. Okay.
So that's the flow through.
You know, the question here is as a county, as a community of 10 municipalities who have, what's that other graphic you have with all of the different, I hate to call them silos. Because we think of silos these days as not always a good thing. But when you look at these areas, you know, the question is, does an organization and the municipalities, does a county want to promote the good things that's happening in their community? And if so, then how do we do that? I mean, that's what it boils down to. If you don't think that we should promote ourselves, then, you know, we don't go any further on that. And we allow folks who are outside, or we allow folks with an axe to grind, or we allow folks who frankly hate us to define who we are. So the question becomes, there's plenty of bad news out there. So I've heard someone say, well, we don't want to cover up the bad. Don't worry about that. We got folks who have assigned themselves the task of educating the world about the problems that we have, just like every community has. So the question is it fair? Is it a good thing for us to promote the good things that we have going on? Because there are some folks, some organizations, who don't want to promote any good. It's only the bad. So what do? Do we become victim then to that marketing? Or do we at least say, you know, give us one glove. Don't give me 2. Give me one glove and tie the other hand behind my back if you want, but at least let me fight for my own community some. And so this is what this discussion was about, was do we have a right as a community to talk about the good things that we have going on? Most of us believe the answer is yes. So then how do we do that? Does this cost money to do? Of course it does. Then who pays for that? Well, I'd love for the Friends of the Rowan County Library to pay for it. Because, yeah, she's shaking her head no. Well, of course not. That's not what you do. So, you know, organizations, counties, municipalities all across the United States market themselves. This is not groundbreaking. This is what they do. They market themselves through magazines, through television, through billboards, through social media, on television with ads. They do it in travel magazines. This is not groundbreaking. Every time I think that we're doing some really cool stuff, I find out we're about a dozen years behind everybody else. This is not new. This is what other communities do, okay? So if we think it's important to defend ourselves and to talk about the great people that we have here and the great things that we have going on, then who's going to do that? That's the next question we should ask. Should government do that? Should we set up a department, the advertising department? And I'm only one voice on that, but I say no. Government's horrible at that stuff. You know, so, and plus when government does it, our hands are so tied in doing that. And so how can we use funding that maybe we can provide, but do it in a way where there's accountability, but also flexibility? So the first group we went to was an obvious group. James Meacham's in the back of the room. We talked to James and said, James, this is just an extension of what's going on with our branding, okay? But James doesn't have the capacity to do that right now based on his staffing. So then the next question was, then who else can do it? And so we went to the EDC. And I'll be honest with you, the EDC has been hesitant about this. You know why? Because they didn't want to have the very question asked today, why are you asking for more money? The EDC is not here asking for more money. Okay? We're not mingling the funds with the EDC. So the question is, who else could do it? And since the Tourism Authority does not have the capacity right now to do that, the EDC seemed to be the next board because they have a great board made up of folks that we appoint. They are accountable to us. We met with Aaron Church and with JD's, and that's what was recommended to us, that instead of setting up another board, and Carolyn said, oh, Lord, please, not another board that she's got to track, we would simply provide that funding to the EDC to be supervisor over those funds. We would restrict those funds strictly for marketing for our county. They would appoint a task force or a committee that was made up of those groups of folks that you saw, if you want to go back to that, April, or someone. So these would be the folks, and it's representatives from all across the county, and they represent those sectors of education, and the chamber, and healthcare, an EDC board member, business community representative, a couple of those, a marketing representative, the Convention and Visitors Bureau would be on that board, real estate and developers and arts. These are all things that we have that are great in this community, and these people want to tell the good story. So if we don't think that we should market, if we don't think that we should defend ourselves, then this is simple. We just vote no. If we think that we do want to defend ourselves, we do want to promote Rowan County, then what's the best way of doing that? And right now, using the legal advice of our attorney and our county manager, this was the way we decided to go. So that is what we want to do. Seems pretty simple to me.
So what, is this let me ask you this, is this one-time donation, or is this going to be a budget item, a budget line?
Well, my understanding would be we've got to get it's like building a school, you know, it costs money up front and then you have ongoing expense. My belief would be that this would be the biggest ask that we have to get up and going, we have to create systems, we have to create websites, we have to create content. There's a lot that has to be done on the front end because we haven't done anything ever. Okay, so you have to build the structure. I would expect that at budget time we would come back and ask for a much smaller amount in next year's budget that would keep this ongoing. We can't just advertise once and think things are going to get better, because I'll tell you, the folks who don't want things to get better in Rowan County are not going to stop when our funds run out. So I would much rather that we, like other communities, don't have folks out there trying to tear us apart. But, you know, if we could call a truce on that somehow, then maybe we could think about doing something else. But
Mike, the silos that were up here, I
Yes,
assume
sir.
our silo is the middle.
Your silo's in the middle. Well, actually, your silo is part of the municipal. Yes, your Rowan County's in the middle. Yeah, and then there's a municipality that is inclusive of everybody else, other municipalities as well.
So would an example of what might be marketed is these investments we're making in infrastructure up in the north, and then what we're going to do in the south?
Absolutely. Everything that's positive, that everybody in this county will get pushed out over and over and over and over again. Okay? There's so many different points. All the members of these silos that have been created have great things going on, but they're being confined in their own little silo. Outside that silo, even within the other groups that are within those, I mean, whether it's education, whether it's Novant and with healthcare, or whether it's, the arts, or whether it's business, all these areas have great and wonderful things going on, but they keep it to themselves within their own little group. And this is about sharing and marketing that to everybody there and then outside of there. And once you go outside of there is when you start pulling in other avenues of marketing. Consistently within this, it would be primarily social media. But once you extend out from that, you might go into some other areas. I don't think this isn't a TV play, okay? TV costs too much money, okay? So unless this commission wants to put up $1 million, I can tell you the usefulness of throwing even the whole entire $80,000 at TV will get us very, very, very little, okay? So the biggest bang for the buck is social media and digital marketing. On average, it costs $2.50 per 1,000 to get your message in front of somebody when it comes to digital and social media marketing. TV is $28 per 1,000. Okay? Radio is $18 per 1,000. And impressions is getting that message in front of one person, is what that is.
So would part of this be, I know we talked about the digital, but would they try to get positive stories, say in the Charlotte Business Journal or the Winston-Salem Business
Absolutely.
Journal?
That's the PR. That's this part here. Let me go back. I'm sorry. That's the public relations part, okay? And pitching story ideas to publication, both regional and national publications. That's what PR is. It's writing stories and then submitting those stories to outlets where that editorial can be rewritten. Now, the digital world has redefined that whole editorial part, because there's a lot other sites online that aren't in a print version that you also have that you get your message to, that then compounds itself. A lot of those are consistent with blogs that focus on people that are moving and engaging communities and those type of things, and that's where that messaging would be pushed out to them as well, both traditional, what I'm going to call traditional print, as well as digital.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good, because I think what we're doing up, with the water and sewer in the north, and what we're going to be doing down at the new exit is something we haven't done here in a long time, or maybe at all, and I think that's something we need to push out to the surrounding business communities everywhere.
Absolutely.
What we're trying to do.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Mike,
yes.
We have 10 municipalities here. Of that 10, how many of them do you, and this is just a question because I don't know, how many of them would have their own website?
How many out of the 10 current municipalities? Every one of your current municipalities in the county have a website.
So this would be something that you would give to them, and that they would be.
Yes, we would coordinate it. We would coordinate them getting that on their websites, their social media. I mean, the bigger thing is also their social media presences, as well. I mean, municipalities, there's roughly 60,000 between all the municipalities. That's all the towns, all 11. They have 60,000 is their social media presence right now. Okay, that's all total, all of them put together. So that's China Grove, that's Rockwell, that's Gold Hill, that's all of theirs. A website, somebody's got to come to your website and look you up for a reason. These are active social media users that are happening every single day, and those people, they're interacting with people on a daily basis. A website you're only going to get traffic there if you drive it some way there that then you interact with that website. But we will also connect those.
That is probably not something that our municipalities are doing at this point.
They're doing it themselves for them in their little towns, but within, Granite Quarry, they're doing it. But Granite Quarry's, I don't know their footprint, but I'm going to say China Grove because I remember China Grove. China Grove's footprint with social media is like 7,000, roughly 7,000. So Patty and, their events people, Ken Deal and all them, they're talking to those people on a daily basis, but it's just those 7,000. What if those 7,000 then talk to Granite Quarry, then talk to Rockwell, then talk to Gold Hill? That's where all this, you get the multiplier effect, and that's how social media is. It's about growing and organic and passing that on, because when you get something and you share it, it's shared to all of your friends. They're on your Facebook. however many you have. Jim, you may have 5,000, okay? But, you know, when you share something, it goes to all 5,000. Whoever shared it with you may have overlap with you, maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 50, maybe depending on what it is. But you're now sharing it to a different audience primarily than whoever shared it with you. And that's what this is about. And it's about a coordinated effort. This isn't like we just get everybody in and say, okay, we're going to push this to you and you're going to do it on your own. No. We know, because all these organizations have their own things that they're working on. They're stressed to do their own, you know, their own social media, their own marketing. If they're doing marketing within their towns, they're doing other things. Patty's doing events. She's setting up Farmers Day. She's doing this. So we will facilitate that and help them and do it in a lot of cases. We'll help them develop content. We'll help them create videos and do things that they don't have the capacity to do, but should be doing. And they will have the ability to share that out as themselves. So, and that's where your digital assets come into play.
Let me give one great example of it's not all aggressive negative marketing that's out there, although there are folks that are actively marketing against Rowan County. But most of it, frankly, is just old information. A great example is there's someone in Rowan County that has an old website that was dedicated to addressing the issue at High Rock Lake. When Alcoa was in the middle of relicensing and the FERC and all that was going on, listen, there were big issues at the lake. There was no limit on how low that Alcoa could draw down the lake. And so folks like Larry Jones and the High Rock Lake Association and this man that has this website were actively, I'll just say, working to try to get Alcoa to come up with better regulations for how to operate that lake. Well, now with this new licensing, again, the folks at High Rock Lake Association and others were able to get some terrific concessions from Alcoa on, in just one issue, the drawdown, and another one would be who can put piers out there and things like that. And so that old website has not been touched since the early 2000s. But when you Google High Rock Lake, you pull up on the very first page a website from 2002 that is full of old information, full of information that is pertinent to a 15-year-old rules that were being run back then. Now those rules are completely different. So what these guys are already trying to do is to say, hey, can we talk to you, owner of that website, and either get you to take that down because it's hurting when folks Google High Rock Lake, or we'll help you rewrite it and make you a great new website with updated information. So it's not just folks who are actively negative at Rowan County. It is about coordinating and across the board finding out that information that may be old and outdated and updating it. So as one example. All right, other questions?
I just have a comment. As far as advertising, I guess I really agree that we do need to do this. And the return on investment, I think, is going to be incredible when people finally start to see those numbers. And personally, I think this is something that we can't not do. So.
All right, so Jay, I don't know where we are. We tabled this, so is there still a motion then on the table? But I think maybe some things have changed with regard to structure.
I would just suggest starting with a new motion based on your new information.
All right, then I'll make the motion that we provide restricted funding of $80,000 to be in a restricted fund to EDC. EDC will appoint a marketing task force based on the groups that the individuals that we prescribed here, and that the budget that has been presented today be the restricted budget that we use for this project. Is that adequate, Jay? Okay. Make that in form of a motion.
I'll second that.
All right, further discussion. All right, if there's none other, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Commissioners, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Amy Lynn Albertson, welcome back. She's like, what in the world? Good to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You all received our applications for approval for the voluntary ag districts. I do want to formally invite you to our Farmer Appreciation Breakfast next Thursday at 7 a.m. at Trading Ford Baptist Church. I also would like to invite you to the Small Grains Field Day at the Piedmont Research Station. I've brought with me today the director of the research station, Ms. Teresa Herman. Tomorrow we'll be having a field day out at the research station looking at wheat trials and barley trials. And there'll be lunch and snacks. Always a good time. It's supposed to rain, which means we should have good attendance.
Well, you had us at lunch,
Okay.
so thank you. All right, so we just need a motion to approve the farmland preservation applications. Thanks for getting those to us again. Sorry for the delay. Okay, appreciate it.
Right, and we had a few new ones come in.
Individual ones or as a group?
We have 4 that have applied to be in the voluntary ag district and 1 that has applied to be in the enhanced voluntary ag district.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Since my name is going to be one of the 4 that is on there, and even though there is no monetary gain by having your land put into these projects, I will refrain from voting unless told to do so by the attorney. I will vote for ones that do not affect me, but when my name comes up, I will not vote on that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Jay, do we need to vote on these separately then?
You can take separate motions, or you can do them in groups of 3 without Commissioner Green's. Commissioner Green and I discussed it before the meeting, and I don't think that there's a real conflict. But what we discussed was if you just want to avoid the appearance of anything improper, that we could refrain from the vote on his particular property. And
all right, well, thank you. So do we have a motion to approve the application for the Martins for Edwin Hamill? And for Michael Shepard.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then do we have a motion to approve the application for James and Karen Green?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right.
We also have the Shooping and the Lewis Lucas tract.
I missed one.
2.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the application for the Shooping and Lucas tract?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday,
Good. We'll
7
be
a.m.
there. 7 a.m.
Yes.
All right, emergency services. Mr. Solis. Oh, no. Wow, look here.
Uh-oh.
You know, she's got me on her phone for speed dial, and anytime I see her name come up on my phone, I panic, because she's usually calling me from a house fire, and it usually means that the person has said, my insurance agent's Greg Edds.
Or sending you a picture of a goat.
It's like Pavlov's dog. When I see her name come up, I start sweating.
Chairman, Commissioners, Board, thank you for allowing us the time this afternoon. I received a petition that was citizen-driven to change from the Scotch Irish Fire Department to the Rowan Iredell. These citizens were in the Rowan Iredell district until we went to strictly GIS. At that point, all the coordinates became closer and it wasn't a bird's eye view. And the citizens had been active in Rowan Iredell and were also fire commissioners on Rowan Iredell. And the Sharp family came to me about a petition. I gave them the information from the general statute. And at this time, the requirements of General Statute 692511-4 have been met. They have presented the petition. There are 9 tracts there, or parcels, and we have 8 signatures. And the one that was not signed was because it was an estate, and my understanding is they could not find someone from that estate. The other thing, I do have vetted signatures from the boards of both fire departments in agreeance and the fire commissioners from both fire departments. So now we need to request a public hearing and for it to be in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. So we are requesting the public hearing in 2 weeks, or at your convenience, whatever Carolyn would.
All right, then, do we have a motion to schedule the public hearing for April 2nd for fire protection district transfer?
So moved.
All right.
You said 2 weeks, didn't you?
It has to run for 2 weeks, so that's
April
up to
2nd,
you
yeah.
when you want to do it, but
Yeah.
April 2nd is fine.
April 2nd.
It can't go in effect until July 1st anyway for the new fiscal year.
Okay, so April 2nd's our date.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we got some board appointments. Let's see. Chris Solis, who's that guy? Did we do a background check on this one? Applied to fill the Emergency Services Director's position, which resulted from Frank Thomason's retirement. Do we have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nursing Home Advisory Committee, Charles French has applied for reappointment for consistency with term dates. The board is asked to approve the reappointment with a 3-year term date effective August 1, 2017 through July 31st, 2020. Do we have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Parks and Rec, Edmund Watts has applied for a vacancy. The board is asked to approve the appointment with a 3-year term date beginning March 5th, 2018, expiring on December 31st, 2020. Motion to accept that?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chris Solis, again, has applied to fill the vacant Rescue Squad Board of Directors position, which resulted from Frank Thomason's retirement. And do we have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Rowan County, we have 42 openings. So if I could count all of those folks in the room, about 20 of you, if each of you would take 2 boards, we could knock this out today.
Do we do a background search on those?
Well, we need to.
Some of these wouldn't qualify.
Pass the news. We have 42 openings. Need to do better than that. All right, so I need to make a motion to move into closed session. So we'll empty the room here in a moment. I move the board now enter closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 for attorney-client privilege communication. 1, regarding legal counsel for potential opioid litigation, and 2, for acquisition of easements for the waterline project. We'll begin as soon as the door closes. All right, we've come out of closed session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.